Once upon a time, in a kingdom far away, lived a king with 3 sons. The king, growing old, knew it was time to choose his successor. But he didn't want to just give the kingdom away. He wanted his sons to prove their worth. So, he devised a series of challenges. For the first task, he summoned his 3 sons and said, "I want each of you to bring me the finest, most beautiful carpet in the world. The one who succeeds will be one step closer to the throne." The 2 older brothers, brimming with confidence, laughed at the youngest son. "You find the world's most beautiful carpet," they scoffed. "You're more likely to get lost in the woods." They rode off on magnificent horses, heading straight for the bustling city markets, their pockets heavy with gold. The youngest prince, whose name was Ivan, was often underestimated. He was kind and gentle, but his brothers saw this as weakness. Feeling disheartened, he walked aimlessly into the forest, not knowing where to begin. After a while, he stumbled upon a small, unassuming hut. He knocked on the door, and a voice from inside called out, "Come in." Ivan entered and was greeted by a surprising sight. Sitting by the fire was a gray cat, looking at him with intelligent green eyes. "What brings you to my humble home, young prince?" the cat asked, its voice surprisingly clear and gentle. Ivan, though startled to hear a cat speak, was too downhearted to be truly shocked. He explained his father's quest and how his brothers had mocked him. The cat, who introduced herself as Vaska, listened patiently. "Do not worry," she purred. "I will help you. Go home and rest. When the time comes, return to me, and you will have what you need." Trusting the mysterious cat, Ivan returned to the palace. Ayer passé. The 2 older brothers returned, presenting lavish carpets woven with gold and silver threads, adorned with precious jewels. They were magnificent, and the court gasped in awe. Just then, Ivan arrived, empty-handed. His brothers jeered. "Look, he brought nothing but dust on his boots." But Ivan calmly announced, "My carpet is on its way." At that moment, a massive carriage, pulled by 12 sleek, black horses, rolled into the courtyard. It was made of pure gold and encrusted with diamonds. Out stepped a servant who unrolled a carpet so breathtakingly beautiful that it seemed woven from moonlight and rainbows. The patterns shifted and swirled with a life of their own. Beside it, the older brothers' carpets looked like drab rags. The king was speechless. The first trial belonged to Ivan. But the king wasn't finished. For the second task, he declared, "You must bring me the most exquisite piece of silverware in all the lands." Once again, the older brothers mounted their horses and galloped off, eager to outdo each other. And once again, Ivan went straight to the little hut in the forest. He found Vaska, the cat, waiting for him. "I know why you've come," she said with a knowing look. "The king wants silverware." Ivan nodded. "Again?" Vaska said, "Go home and do not worry. Return when the time is right." Ivan, having learned to trust the cat, did as he was told. Another year went by. The older princes came back with massive silver platters and goblets, so heavy they required several servants to carry them. They were intricately engraved and polished to a mirror shine. As they displayed their treasures, Ivan appeared. This time, His brothers were less quick to mock, remembering the carpet. As before, Ivan announced that his gift was coming. Soon, another incredible carriage, this one of pure silver, pulled by white horses, arrived. A servant emerged, carrying a small, walnut-sized box. The older brothers snickered. A tiny box. What could possibly be inside? But when Ivan opened it, the entire court fell silent. Inside was a complete set of silverware, plates, goblets, forks, and knives, all perfectly crafted in miniature. They were so delicate and detailed, it seemed impossible they were made by human hands. As everyone stared, the silverware magically grew to full size, shimmering with an otherworldly light. It was a masterpiece of enchantment, far surpassing the clumsy, heavy silver of his brothers. Ivan had won the second trial. The king was deeply impressed, but he had one final test. For the final task, he announced, his voice booming through the hall, "You must each bring a bride. The one whose bride is the most beautiful and clever shall inherit my kingdom." The older princes were thrilled. This was a challenge they were sure to win. They rode off immediately to neighboring kingdoms, ready to woo the most famous princesses. Ivan, however, felt a pit in his stomach. How could he find a bride? He thought of Vaska. Could she help him with this, too? He journeyed back to the hut one last time. "Vaska," he said, his voice heavy. "The king wants us to bring home a bride." The cat looked at him and meowed softly. "This is the most difficult task of all," she said. "But I will not abandon you. You must take me to the palace." Ivan was horrified. "Take you? But you are a cat." "Do you trust me, Ivan?" Vaska asked, her green eyes piercing his. He remembered the carpet and the silverware. He had come this far because of her. "Yes," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I trust you. Then place me in the carriage and let us go," she commanded. With a heavy heart, Ivan gently picked up the cat, placed her on a velvet cushion inside a simple carriage he had brought, and began the journey back to the palace. Along the way, he passed his brothers. They were riding in grand processions, each escorting a beautiful princess in fine gowns. When they saw Ivan with a cat in his carriage, they howled with laughter. "The fool is going to marry a cat," they shouted, tears of mirth streaming down their faces. Ivan ignored them, his face burning with shame, but he kept his promise. As they approached the palace gates, Vaska turned to him. "Stop here," she said. Ivan stopped the carriage. Vaska then leaped out onto the ground, and in a flash of brilliant golden light, the gray cat transformed. Standing before Ivan was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She had hair like spun gold, eyes as green as the forest, and wore a gown that shimmered like the stars. "I am Princess Vasilisa," she said, her voice like music. "I was placed under a curse by an evil sorcerer, forced to live as a cat until a prince with a kind and true heart agreed to take me as his bride." The enchanted carriages that had delivered the carpet and silverware reappeared, now even more magnificent. They were filled with lords and ladies, a royal retinue for the princess. Together, Ivan and Vasilisa rode into the palace courtyard. When the king saw her, he knew instantly that no other woman on earth could compare to her beauty and grace. The brides of the older princes, though lovely, seemed plain and ordinary next to the radiant vast. The king rose from his throne and declared, "Even, you have proven your worth. You have a heart full of courage, kindness, and trust. You and your magnificent bride shall rule this kingdom." A grand wedding was held, the greatest the kingdom had ever seen. The two older brothers, humbled and ashamed of their arrogance, were given small plots of lands to govern, where they learned to be better men. Ivan and Vasilisa ruled the kingdom with wisdom and compassion for many, many years. They never forgot the little hut in the woods, or the lesson that true worth lies not in gold or silver, but in a kind heart and the courage to trust even when things seem impossible. And that is how the youngest son, with the help of an enchanted cat, won a bride and a kingdom. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this classic tale of magic and romance, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from around the world. We'll see you in the next video. The princess explained that she had been transformed into a white cat by a wicked fairy because she had refused to marry a dull and cruel prince from a distant land who only wanted her kingdom for its riches. And she had been forced to live in the crystal castle, surrounded by invisible servants who were once her loyal subjects, also turned into spirits by the same dark magic. The youngest prince was moved to tears by her story and vowed that he would never let anyone harm her again. But as they prepared to depart for the king's palace, they noticed that the invisible hands were starting to fade, and the crystal walls were beginning to crack because the magic that had sustained the castle was tied to the enchantment of the white cat. And now that the curse was broken, the physical world was reclaiming the space where the magical realm once stood. They gathered all the treasures they could carry, including the tiny dog and the fine lace, and escaped across the golden bridge just as the castle vanished into a cloud of sparkling dust that settled over the forest like a blanket of snow. The journey back to the king's court was long, and they encountered many people who were amazed by the princess's beauty because her grace was so natural and her kindness so evident that even the birds stopped singing to listen to her speak. When they finally arrived, the two older brothers were already there showing off the brides they had found. But when the youngest prince entered with the transformed white cat, the entire room fell silent, because no one had ever seen such a combination of majesty and gentleness. The old king realized that his game was finally over, and that he could no longer make excuses to keep his throne. So he placed the crown upon his youngest son's head and declared that the kingdom was now in the hands of a true hero who had proven that patience and love were more powerful than any sword or crown. The young king and his white cat princess began their reign by opening the gates of the silent palace to all the people of the land, because they realized that a kingdom built on secrets and invisible servants was a kingdom that could never truly flourish. The princess used her knowledge of the hidden arts to teach the weavers how to spin thread as fine as the lace she had once stored in a nut, and the soldiers were turned into builders and farmers because there was no longer any need for a war against a mystery that had been solved. But the old king, who had retired to a small tower in the corner of the gardens, spent his days looking at the empty walnut shell and the tiny dog, which had now grown into a regular hound, because he could not handle a world where he was no longer the one setting the tasks. He began to whisper to the two older brothers that the youngest had only won through trickery, and that the princess was still a witch in disguise who had bewitched the entire court with her silver voice. The brothers, who were jealous of the crystal treasures and the beauty of the new queen, started to gather a small army of followers in the dark corners of the city, claiming that the natural order of the kingdom had been disrupted by a cat who became a girl. The story shifted from a fairy tale of magic into a story of a silent Cold War within the palace walls, where the young king had to decide if he would use the same iron force his father once used, or if he would find a way to win over his brothers without shedding a single drop of blood. The White Cat Princess saw the shadows growing, and instead of using magic, she invited the brothers to a great feast, where she gave them each a kingdom of their own from her father's old lands, proving that generosity is the only way to truly silence an enemy who only wants what you have. The White Cat Princess realized that her brothers-in-law were not satisfied with their own kingdoms, because the human heart often desires the one thing it cannot have, and that was the original throne of their father. The old king, who sat in his garden tower, began to send secret messages to the neighboring lords, claiming that the new king was under the spell of a feline spirit, and that the very lace they wore was woven from the whiskers of ghosts. The two brothers used the wealth of the lands they had been gifted to build a fortress on the border, and they stopped the flow of grain and salt into the young king's city because they wanted to prove that a ruler who led with kindness was too weak to protect his people. The young king watched his granaries go empty and his people grow hungry, but he refused to call his knights to battle because he remembered the peaceful days in the Crystal Castle, where no one ever struck a blow in anger. The White Cat Princess saw that her husband's mercy was becoming his downfall, and she knew that sometimes a queen must be as sharp as a claw to protect the nest she had built. She went to the old king in his tower and showed him the empty walnut shell that once held the tiny dog, and she whispered that the magic was not in the objects, but in the person who could find beauty in a small thing. The old king laughed and said that power was the only beauty he understood. So the princess reached into her pocket and pulled out a single silver needle that she had kept from her days as a cat, and she touched it to the stone walls of the tower, turning the entire structure into a cage of shimmering glass where everyone could see the old king's treachery, but no one could hear his lies. She then traveled to the border where her brothers-in-law waited with their armies, and she did not bring a sword but a simple white rose that she had grown in the garden of the Crystal Castle. When she dropped the petal into the wind, it turned into a mist that made the soldiers forget their anger and remember the homes they had left behind. The brothers found themselves standing alone on a field of grass with no one to fight for them and no one to fear them, because the princess had shown the world that the greatest magic is not turning a cat into a girl, but turning a conflict into a conversation. The youngest king and the White Cat Princess finally realized that magic could solve a riddle, but it could not build a lasting peace without the hard work of the people themselves. So they used the glass tower not as a prison, but as a lighthouse to guide travelers from all the surrounding lands to a city where the gates would always open, and the laws were written in the language of the common heart. The two brothers eventually grew tired of their empty fortresses and returned to the palace to ask for forgiveness, not because they had changed their minds, but because they had run out of followers who believed in a war against a ghost. The old king stayed in his garden looking at the white roses that never faded, and he finally understood that the smallest dog and the finest lace were just symbols of a grace he had never possessed. As the years passed, the story of the white cat became a legend told by the fireside to remind everyone that even the most beautiful transformation requires a sacrifice of the old self to make room for the new. And the kingdom became a place where the music of the crystal castle was heard in the laughter of children and the rustle of the golden wheat fields until the day the king and queen passed into the stars, leaving behind a world that no longer needed a crown to be grand or a curse to be magical. They lived in the memory of their people as the ones who turned a claw into a hand and a secret into a song that will never be forgotten as long as there are cats dreaming in the moonlight and hearts looking for a home in the dark. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your night. May you find deep peace and restful sleep. Wishing you the sweetest dreams. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.